Hello, BookTube. I went out today. Left Hyde Cottage. What are you doing? What are you doing? Huh? What are you doing? I'm trying to make a video. You're just going nuts over here. Just, that's all right. They want to see you more than they want to see me. I left that little ball of energy today and went out to do some errands that just could not be postponed, and they could not be done from the comfort of my couch. So I went out. And one of those errands took me to the neighborhood of the big urban mall right near the Boston Public Library, the Prudential Center. It's a big urban mall. I remember when the particular Boston mayor who wanted it to be his crown and glory was trying to push it through the legislation. I remember the deals that he was cutting with retailers. I remember everything about it. I remember everything about its genesis. And I never guessed when I was watching that happen that I would end up working there one day, but I did. I worked for Barnes & Noble, the big retail bookstore here in America. And when our downtown Crossing store closed, the company moved everybody over to the Prudential Center store. Big glass and steel thing, beautiful, state-of-the-art, far different from our ramshackle old store downtown. And I went. Of course I did. I don't think the company would make that offer now, but it was very generous at the time. So they said anybody who works at this old store can go to that new store. You won't get any lessening in hours. Your benefits will stay the same, all that sort of stuff. So a lot of us went, and I worked there for a little while. And I still like to go back there. It's a big retail bookstore. It's the only one that remains in Boston. There are a bunch of indie bookstores, but this one is not only a 100 times greater selection, but I also have a Barnes & Noble discount that's hefty. So since I had an errand that was taking me near to there, I went just to browse, just to look around. I looked at the new release tables, but there weren't that many. I looked at there was a tower for mass market paperbacks, but again, nothing that I hadn't seen before and nothing that really struck me. So I looked at another one of the glories of that Barnes & Noble, which will go. It will be gone from Boston, just not just from the mall, but from Boston if that store closes, which is it's an enormous newsstand. It's an enormous periodical section. It goes on for a fifth of a mile. Thousands of magazines. Every subject under the sun. So I looked at all of those, and I found a few things that I want to show you. And then I went into the graphic novel section, the comic book section of science fiction and fantasy, just to see if anything jumped out at me, because it is substantially discounted. I thought, why not? And then I left, and eventually I made my way back here to Hyde Cottage. I couldn't help but notice, again, I've made this point a few times before when I've gone to this particular Barnes & Noble. I couldn't help but notice when I was leaving that the mall, which is just layer upon layer upon layer of retail, all abutted to a gigantic complex of fancy hotels to take convention traffic and tourist traffic and business traffic. What are you doing? What are you doing? Huh? What is it with you? Huh? I'm trying to talk to my Donoghue-gonauts. I also met a puppy in the mall, 8 weeks old. He was absolutely adorable. He kept falling over when he was trying to greet me because he has no puppy coordination. Anyway, where was I? Oh yeah, I couldn't help but notice when I was meeting that little puppy, when I was walking out of the mall, out of the bookstore and through the mall, was that the place is empty. Just empty. In the middle of the day. Empty. Not for the first time either. Every time I go there, it's just deserted. And you get to a certain a couple of points in walking through this mall, and you can look up at the various layers of banisters and porticos and other shops. They go up for levels and levels. The shops get more expensive the higher up you go. And they were all empty too. There's just no one in the stores, no one walking around, no one in the hotels, no one at the convention centers. The Prudential Center is murderously expensive to run. So, not for the first time, I looked at it and thought existential thoughts. I thought, well, you know, leaving the bookstore out of it for the minute, how can this whole complex continue? How can this whole complex continue to function? No one works in these offices anymore. They work remotely. No one comes to these conventions anymore. They're all shut down. No one takes vacations anymore, not a tenth of the ones who did. So where is the money coming from to keep the air conditioning on for 140 stories or whatever? But anyway, when I got back, I'm sorry, I'm bouncing up and down because the bed is still fighting with the bed. And I don't know why. She's just, that's all. I wanted to show you what I got. I decided as a theme that I would get some literary periodicals. Haven't tried those in a while. Figured while I was there, and since I get a discount, I might as well. I found the first issue of something called O Reader, which, sorry, just ignore the choking noise in the background, which Gemma Peckham is the editor. This is the first issue, and she writes that she started this magazine because I couldn't find it on the shelves. I found plenty of magazines telling me which books were on trend and which authors were saying vital things, but I couldn't find anything that shared what books do to people, what readers get from their love affairs with books. I love that premise, absolutely. Once I got this back here and looked at it just a bit, I realized my instinct started to kick in, and I started to wonder, that is a great premise. A magazine devoted to the joys of reading instead of just the trends and what's new would be great. It was only when I got this back here that I started to get the impression that maybe this is O Woke Reader. And I will have to read it. I will read every word of this. I'll study it from front to back. I am guessing, if I am right, I am guessing that none of the books discussed or referenced anywhere in the course of this square-bound magazine will have been published any earlier than 2004. My guess will be that no one associated with this magazine, no ads, no one on the masthead, no contributors, no freelancers, no one is male. Or if there are a couple of a handful of token men, they will be intensely gay men. They will be intensely gay. But otherwise, no. And that none of the authors who are talked about anywhere in the length of this thing, whether it's think pieces about the books that meant the most to me in childhood, or reviews of new books, if the thing has it, that nothing in here will be, that men will simply not feature in here. That isn't a death sentence at all. It could still be really good. But I've seldom found that when a nakedly political agenda like that is pursued, I've seldom found that it is pursued in a spirit of kindness. Usually, if you're going to create an online space, a blog, or an online zine, or a print newspaper, or print magazine, that is woke, it will be vengefully woke. It won't just be that all of your contributors and all of your authors and all of your sentiments are all by women. It'll be that they're also all hating men. We'll see. It's a fine line to walk. I've almost never seen anyone do it, but if O Reader can do that, I am perfectly happy to spend an hour of reading time in the company of bookish women. Absolutely, I am at any time, a magazine or otherwise. I'm just worried, as I've mentioned on this channel before, in the circumstances like this, I always worry that not only am I going to not find myself represented in the literary contents on display, but that I'm going to be the enemy, the villain, that I'm going to be named all but personally as the villain. And I don't want that. Obviously, I don't want that. It's not warranted. It's not true. And it's bigotry. It's sexism. So I will see. I'm giving O Reader the benefit of the doubt. I'll be very happy if they please me. And I will buy every issue if they do. I'll send a letter to the editor. If I love the issue, I'll send a letter to the editor with congratulations, and I will buy every issue. This next one, also bookish, is something that I found online. And I like the online version of this so much that I'm going to give this a try and see if maybe I want the magazine as well. It's the Critic. the new magazine for the open-minded readers. I am an open-minded reader, and I am, for good measure, also a critic. The website for this thing is very much anti-woke, and very, very much, who cares about my pronouns? We're not into virtue signaling. We don't want to be told to virtue signal, etc., etc., etc. And the problem with that attitude is that it also imports naked political agendas into the world of what Gore Vidal referred to as book chat. And I don't want that either. I not only don't want to pick up "Oh Reader" and be told you're the enemy. I also don't want to pick up the Critic and be told that gay people or women are the enemy. I don't want to be told either one of those things. I just want to read people writing really smartly about books. I found some of that in the website of the Critic. So I'm wondering if this will be the same. Again, I will sink the time into doing this. I noticed when I looked at the table of contents that they have a music column by Norman Lebrecht, who did a music column for almost a decade for Open Letters Monthly, where I was the managing editor. And he's terrific, absolutely terrific. I've praised some of his books on this channel before. It'd be nice to know if he's in good company. We shall see. It'll be either way, even if neither one of these are forever keepers. It'll still be a large amount of bookish-related periodical reading, and that is going to be fun. That is going to be money well spent anyway. That's why I justified buying these things. And the last one is not a jump in the dark at all. This is an organ that I know well. I just don't always keep up with it the way I should. It was easy to do. It was easy to keep up with it when I worked at this Barnes & Noble because I knew when every new issue came in. I would just buy it when it came in. Instead, it's very difficult to keep an eye on things when they come in and whatnot, especially since I won't hit this too strongly because I want all bookstores, not just indies, but all bookstores to thrive. But it's especially true because there is, even now that I have a working burner phone, there is no point in calling a Barnes & Noble and asking someone who picks up the phone any kind of question. There is just no point in doing that at all. If your Barnes & Noble is different, then I'm envious. But this Barnes & Noble, now, there's no point in calling and saying, do you have even something as simple as, do you have the September-October issue of such and such a magazine? They might get it wrong. Half the time that I've called, someone has gotten it wrong. It's simply gotten that detail wrong. And that's to say nothing of an actual bookish question. Like, for instance, just out of the blue, hi, I'm thinking about making a trip to your store. I love the Barnes & Noble leather-bound classic edition run. They're all so beautiful. I noticed you have a Divine Comedy, and I'm wondering who's the translator of that Divine Comedy. Well, the person that you talk to is going to be 18 years old. They're probably going to be saturated up to their hair roots in identity politics and Twitter. And they're not going to know what the Divine Comedy is. They're not going to know that it ever needed a translator, and they're not going to know how to find who that translator is, even if they walked over and started pawing at the thing. It's going to be useless to talk to them about it. So I can't call them and ask when this thing comes out. So I just have to go and hope. What I really ought to do is subscribe. And I think that's what I'll do today. I think I got a subscription card in this issue, and this is book form. Great, wonderful, bookish review organ. It can be a little bit on the political side, but the nice thing about it, I'll give you an example here, is that the reviewers are given a lot of space. That's 4 columns. You can make that out. That's 4 columns. They're given a lot of room to talk about their books, and I love that. Absolutely love it. I really ought to subscribe to this thing. This is something I wouldn't mind getting in the mail every day, even though my other subscriptions are dwindling. So those were the periodicals that I got. 3 book-related periodicals. Oh Readers, first edition, The Critic, and Book Forum. Good old Book Forum. But I also got a book while I was at Barnes & Noble. In that graphic novel section, I got the first collection of the Brian Michael Bendis run on the Legion of Superheroes, which you can barely make out in microscopic type up at the top there. It says Legion of Superheroes. The big word is Millennium. It isn't called Millennium. There was a 2-issue miniseries that introduced one character that Brian Michael Bendis took a momentary sexual interest in. And that 2-issue miniseries was called Millennium. But then it launched the Legion of Superheroes, which is the title of this thing. It ought to be in much bigger letters than Millennium, but nevertheless, this is the first handful of issues that Brian Michael Bendis did. I have those issues. We've seen them on this channel. But I thought it's a relaunch of the Legion of Superheroes by, unfortunately, a big showboaty name. It's got press, it's got high profile, and rather than have those individual issues slapping all around, I'll just get this volume. I doubt I'll get any subsequent ones. And the nice thing, one of the nice things about this volume is that it has all sorts of variant covers. All the variant covers that were done, I didn't get a lot of those. A lot of them weren't available. This Legion was launched when my comic shop had been closed for months. So, and this also has this particular Legion was introduced in an issue of Superman with just a couple of panels, just 4 or 5 panels, and I didn't get that issue. I heard about that introduction only too late, and let me see here. I was very happy to learn that those panels, someone put them in this issue. Uh-oh, what's the matter? Help us. Someone put them in this issue with Ivan Rice artwork there. So that's actually our first glance of the Brian Michael Bendis Legion. And I thought I'd get the volume instead of the individual issues and reread it and maybe assess it. In fact, maybe review it, since this volume is new, fairly new. So that was my trip to the bookstore. It was a bunch of bookish reading and then rereading of the Brian Michael Bendis run on the first part of the Brian Michael Bendis run on the Legion of Superheroes, my beloved Legion of Superheroes. So that was an excursion to the bookstore. It doesn't happen very often anymore. But I'm going to wrap this up for now, but I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.